Churchill story they tell about the reporter who was once kind enough to let a rising young politician named Winston Churchill preview an upcoming article about his recent speech. At the end of a long quotation from Churchill's remarks, the newsman had written the word "cheers" to describe the audience's reaction. Churchill scratched it out. The reporter was amazed by what he thought was an unusual display of modesty until Churchill wrote instead, "Loud and prolonged applause." So if there are any reporters in the room tonight, I'd like to have a word with you after the speech. This thrilling era of global change, of peaceful democratic revolution following the sudden collapse of Soviet totalitarianism, labeled by President Bush the Revolution of 1989, was anticipated by Churchill over 4 decades ago. But more than that, I believe his post-war leadership helped lay the foundation for the policies of deterrence and strength that culminated in today's historic events. Far from being a warmonger, Churchill was in fact the earliest advocate of peace through strength. He spent 10 lonely years determined to inform the British people about the growing threat of Nazi rearmament and aggression, and repeatedly challenged the government's policies of appeasement and weakness. He openly disputed the government's figures on the balance between British and German military strength. He insistently demanded the creation of a ministry to supply munitions. He bluntly asked whether Britain was doing all it could to defend democracy. "We must recognize that we have a great treasure to guard," Churchill said 2 years before Munich. "The inheritance in our possession represents the prolonged achievement of the centuries. There is not one of us who simply are uncounted with respect to rights today for which better men than we are died on the scaffold or on the battlefield. We have not only a great treasure, we have a great cause." The tragedy of Munich marked the turning point for Great Britain and for Winston Churchill's political future. The policies of weakness and appeasement followed by Ramsay MacDonald failed. The Nazis marched through Czechoslovakia and rolled through France to the very gates of Paris. In just 40 days, malevolent eyes turned on Britain. In this dark hour, a desperate Britain summoned Churchill to lead the nation into war. The wilderness years were over. The Battle of France had ended. The Battle of Britain had begun. Now, in charge of the entire scene, Churchill recorded that he slept soundly and had no need for cheering dreams. "I felt as if I were walking with destiny," he said, "and that all of my past life had been but a preparation for this hour and for this trial. I was sure I would not fail." 3 weeks into Churchill's government, while British forces were evacuating at Dunkirk, Mussolini offered to mediate between Britain and Germany. Germany would get France and the continent. Britain would get independence to be assured by Hitler. Mainly in the war cabinet favored opening talks. They believed Britain could win better terms before it attacks, and that was sure to come. Churchill was vehemently opposed. When the meeting was opened to the entire cabinet, Churchill gave an impassioned speech. His wrath grew with every word, words that poured forth relentlessly, hurled down like thunderbolts. "Nations which went down fighting rose again," he told his ministers, "but those which surrender tamely are finished." He stunned the cabinet.
That was too hard.
Too hard.